This time on Engine Masters, big block blower, nitrous, E85, 1,500 horsepower! You really have to see this. I have not been this pumped up for an episode of Engine Masters in a long time because we are leaving nothing on the table. We are gonna put some stank on this thing. Here's how it's gonna go. We are gonna test this engine naturally aspirated on gasoline, then with this 871 supercharger at a couple different boost levels on gas. Then we're gonna put nitrous oxide on top of that. Then we're gonna switch it to E85 fuel and see what kind of power gains that gives us. And then we are going to nitrous it on E85. Not playing around this time. Let me tell you about the combination here because this is also personal to me. This long block is a 555 cubic inch big block Chevy, and I ran this at Bonneville Salt Flats in 2007 and did something I don't think anybody's ever done. We set 5 records in 5 days with 4 different drivers. And so this engine has a lot of legacy for me. The bottom end, it's a stout block, it's a forged crank, it's billet rods, it's CP pistons. The bummer about it is it's only 8.3 to 1 compression. These days, if you're building for boost and nitrous, you would go ahead and run, 10.5 to 1, 11 to 1, something like that. But way back when we built it, 8.3 was the number, so we are sacrificing a little power. The heads on top of this thing are an Airflow Research, or AFR, 357 Magnum. The camshaft is another no fooling around unit. The duration at 50 thousandths is 281 and 290 on this thing, and it's got like 800 lift. But now we get into the meat of it. The blower shop 871 Roots supercharger. If you're not keyed into this, the blower shop are the guys to see these days for street or race superchargers. This is the same thing that Mike Finnegan, who's my co-host on the Roadkill show, he's got this on his Hemi in the Blasphemy 55 Chevy that won drag week and that made 1,100 horsepower to the tires doing it and also ran 850s. Same exact supercharger, except for he's got EFI nozzles in the side of it. This thing is a high helix deal, hardened rotors, Teflon stripped, blueprinted to the nth degree, ported at the bottom to improve the flow out of it. This is as good as a regular guy 871 supercharger gets these days. Now, up top, this is an NOS nitrous system. We did not custom make this. I can't bend lines like this. You can buy this straight out of the box. It is like a 16 nozzle fogger for the top of a Roots style supercharger, and we are gonna make good use of that. On the top, 2 Dominators. There's no 4150 carburetors around here. Not when you've got 1,050 CFM each. We're gonna start off with Holley's gasoline Dominator, and as we progress, you're gonna see us add QFT E85 carburetors. Now, we've already tested this naturally aspirated, and so we're gonna show you that. We're gonna roll it in, and our very first dyno test on camera is gonna be with the blower, on gasoline, no nitrous, with sort of mediocre boost. Watch what happens here. This is gonna be legit greatness. First of all, I think we should have the pandemic every day because this is a lot more comfortable than cramming in the little dyno room.
I agree.
It's kind of awesome.
Yeah, it is kind of.
Yeah, with the screens and everything. I guess what's gonna happen is they're gonna show us the engine here so that when it's blowing up, I can scream at you. And then when we come back to do data, we're gonna swap them so that he can actually read the screen from there.
I'd rather see him wear his glasses.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, the specs are pretty good.
I can see like an owl now.
Second of all, I'm more excited about this than anything we've done in a long time. I've been waiting for this.
It's big.
It's big. This supercharger is like a new level of 871 for me, and the 555. I mean, we're gonna be making 4-digit power all day long.
Oh yeah, and you gotta love the Dommies with those secret little pipes underneath.
Oh yeah, nitrous. Now this thing is gonna be beef. So what we're gonna do first is run the thing in its base configuration with the supercharger. What's the overdrive on it?
12.5%.
12.5% over. It's making about 9.5 PSI. It'll make over 1,000 horsepower. And then after that, we'll start to add real horsepower to it. Ready to fire it up?
I am.
All right, baseline, here we go.
Oh, it's gonna be good, Freiburger. You got it.
I'm excited with that. What, 1,050? Let's call it up. It's making 1,052.3 horsepower at 7,200 RPM. Our torque peak is going to be 882 right at the hit of 5,000 RPM. Since we're talking about power, let's look at this curve versus naturally aspirated.
I can read all that
Boom.
stuff.
Okay, so I had to call up this comparison. When I first took this engine out of mothballs, I had Brule pre-run it with a single 4-barrel carburetor, naturally aspirated, just to make sure that it was healthy. It made 768 horsepower at 6,500 RPM, and now it's making 1,052 at 7,200 RPM. So you can see the effects of the supercharger. This is comparatively low boost. This is half of what Finnegan runs in his Hemi. 1/2 the boost. And we're still making 1,052.
I think we're doing good with half the boost.
Yeah, not bad.
You look at the air-fuel ratio numbers, and they're flat like fuel injection. It varies 1/10 during the whole pull.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. Good carburetors.
Yep.
That's a good base.
One thing I would be curious to note is the difference in intake air temperature at one boost level to another. Because one of the things I wonder is once we get into the E85 in particular, does it actually allow you to run more boost because it's a cooler charge? Like it's not just power because it's cooler, but also power because you can run more boost safely.
Well, I would think so, because you have a lower temperature, you're going to have more detonation resistance at that lower temperature, so you can run more boost, because ultimately it's total cylinder pressure that's going to determine it.
Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking. Maybe we should run 2 boost levels here. We got Rocket Brand 118 in it, right?
We do.
Do we have something that is going to make, 14 instead of 9.5?
I don't know. We got some pulleys over there. I can go look.
We're going to go do pulley math. Be right back. BRB. Let me find the pulleys. Here's what we're doing. Our baseline pulley drive ratio was a 54 pulley on the bottom and a 48 on the top. That's the number of teeth on the pulley. You divide that out, you end up with 12.5% overdriven, meaning the supercharger is turning 12.5% more RPM than the engine itself. We're going to change it up with a larger crankshaft pulley. This is a 57, which means it's going to what, 19% overdrive, a little bit more than 19%. So that's going to increase the boost. Now, of course, this is purely scientific because what I'm trying to see is how much the manifold air temperature increases with an increase in boost. And of course, I want to make more power. So we're going to find out what that does. This isn't full-on party pulley mode, but it's at least like happy hour mode, or maybe backyard barbecue mode. It should be good. Okay, now Bruleo is warming it up. And to be accurate, I said in there it was 19% overdrive. It's 18.75. Well, it made 908.2 pound-feet of torque at 5,000 RPM, and our biggest horsepower was 1,065.9 at 7,200 RPM. Not as good as I had hoped. What was the gain in boost? We went from 9.9 to 11.7. So not a giant change, but I'm guessing it heated up the air quite a bit.
Yeah, and this is probably not unlike what we've seen so many other times with gasoline, as you get to that point where it's just the per pound of boost, the first 5 or 6 is 40 or 50 horsepower per pound, and the last couple is what, 10 or 12? It wasn't a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it went from 1053 to 1060 something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not worth it. So we're at the point of no return on gasoline where it's heating up the air, which is a greater detriment than the addition to boost. Plus, it brings risk of detonation and melting electrodes.
Well, that's
See, we've got air inlet temperature over 215 degrees. I mean,
that's the thing about a Roots blower. It's got that limitation compared to some other forms of supercharging.
Yeah.
It adds more heat when you really start pumping up the blower speed.
We gained 20 degrees Fahrenheit in the manifold. The new manifold temperature with the bigger boost is 218 Fahrenheit as opposed to 198. So that's a solid 20 up.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So I guess we're moving on from here to nitrous.
Nitrous.
Oh, this is what I've been waiting for.
I know, me too.
It's gonna be great.
It's not your motor.
I know.
It's okay, it won't be yours either.
So Steve-O, there's a whole bunch of tubing here. This is like a fogger style system. And so, I mean, how's this jetted up? Tell me the rundown here.
You got it, it's exactly like a fogger system. In fact, the jetting that we have in it, I took right off of Holley's website for fogger jetting. So what we have in it now is Holley claims that it's 175 horsepower jet. We have 8 number 22 nitrous jets in it.
Right.
For gasoline, we have an 18,000s fuel jet in it.
So, I mean, what's the difference between running that kind of a setup or running just a regular plate system under each carburetor?
This looks way more awesome.
Yeah, I guess that's reason enough. So, hopefully it works as good as it looks.
It will.
I think we're ready to go, right?
Yeah.
This is going to be the nitrous pull. We've got the same pulleys on the thing, same tune-up. He's going to hit it at 5,000 RPM and sweep it on up to 72. I hope it makes 1,300 horsepower.
I can't wait to see it.
So our peak torque number on nitrous oxide is actually 1,053.7 at 6,300 RPM. And the peak horsepower is 1,269.4 at 6,900 RPM. Okay, now that we've looked at our power, which is obviously huge, although it didn't hit the 1,300 number I was hoping for, let's have a look at the manifold air temperature.
Ooh.
Interesting.
No significant change there.
It was 218 at peak, and now it's 214 at peak. Here's something that I find really strange. I'm hoping that the brilliance of Brule gives me some expert tutelage on why.
Hey, how about me?
I expected the manifold air temperature to drop way low on the nitrous oxide. It really didn't. We saw a peak temperature of 218 with no nitrous and 214 here with the nitrous.
I think it's a combination of two things. I don't think it's cooling as much at this power level because there's more compression, because it's more boost.
Right.
I don't think it cools as well, and I think that it's a probe issue as well.
Okay. Let's look at what happened to boost. So our peak boost is the same at 11.7, but it did show right when you hit it at peak torque, the boost went up. So the red line is the boost curve with no nitrous. The black line is the boost curve with nitrous. So obviously, as soon as he hits the button and it reaches peak torque, right here at 6,300, or I guess that's 65, the boost goes up, but then it drops back down. But since it's making more power, it's consuming more air and more nitrous and more fuel. So since the pulley ratio is the same and the RPM is the same, why doesn't it show more boost?
I'm going to throw it at the sensor. I'm going to say that closed-end sensor isn't really quick enough to see the drop. Also, the higher output of the blower, the more pulley we put in it, the percentage of nitrous becomes smaller, so it makes less of a difference. If we had this at 3 pounds of boost, I think it would show even more cooling because the rate of temperature versus nitrous is different.
I thought that all of that stuff taking up space in the manifold would see the boost rise. And clearly I'm wrong. I'm just trying to discover why you guys think I'm wrong.
The temperature.
The temperature. Oh, which is also adds up to your probe not actually reading. Because if the temperature in the manifold drops that much, it takes up less space. Bing! Good pull, Brule.
Yeah.
Good pull. He's sitting there like, uh-oh, what affects pressure? Volume? Ooh, heat.
That is exactly what was going on.
That was pretty good. Good pull. That actually explains it. Okay, moving on to E85. Now we're doing our changeover to E85, which really only means pouring different gasoline in the tank and changing the carburetors. These are QFT 4500 series carburetors, similar to the Holley Dominator. They both flow 1,050 CFM, but the QFT is designed specifically for E85. So once we get this changed over, we're gonna be making big power. Now we've changed the fuel to E85. Just to explain to you what that is and why would we be doing this. E85 is a gasoline you can buy at most pumps. It's not really available around here. You don't have it up in your place, do you?
Yeah, it's not really gasoline. It's like 15% gasoline and the rest is ethanol alcohol. Is that the idea?
Yeah. Theoretically, I think in California you'll find it's usually 75%, even though it's advertised at 85%. It's a corn-based alcohol. And the reason that we would be using it on the supercharged application is that it should pull more heat out of the air and make more power, especially in a boosted application. Remember in a prior episode of Engine Masters, we tried E85 on a naturally aspirated deal, and it was kind of no great shakes.
NA stuff, that's not unusual to kind of see nothing, maybe some torque, but no real peak horsepower stuff. I think on the blower stuff, we're going to see more of a difference.
Big deal.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to fire it up now and find out what kind of power difference we might see based on the fact that it's going to pull more heat out of the air. So we're going to be looking at that manifold air temperature to drop and the power to go up. Warm it up, Brule.
All right, here we go.
We'll sit here and watch from a social distance. So our new peak power numbers are torque at 5,000 RPM, 970 pound-feet, and our peak horsepower is going to be 1,138.7 at 6,800 RPM. So we picked up 72 horsepower just by changing the fuel. Let's find out why. First of all, manifold temperatures.
Yeah, let's see here.
Wow.
So the manifold air temperature that we had just on gasoline at this same boost configuration on the blower was 218 degrees. Now 148 degrees. That's a massive difference.
Yeah, huge difference.
Yeah. So now we're really seeing it. So what did it do to boost though? If it cooled it off that much, did we reduce our boost? Yes, we did.
Less boost, more power.
Less boost, more power because it's a colder manifold air temperature.
Denser. There's more air to burn.
Yeah. And so exactly how much less? We did have 11.7 PSI, and it is now 10.5. So it's got a full 1.1 PSI less boost, which is significant. All right, let's look at the graph of actually the difference between the gasoline and the E85.
You know how much I love graphs.
Yeah, because it's just so visual. This.
Wow.
Wow. Everywhere in the curve, no downside, 100% win.
Wow, that is definitely worth it. And it's like so much cheaper than race gas.
That too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
yep.
That's all win.
When we did this naturally aspirated, my conclusion was, but with boost, yes.
Yeah.
Big difference, yeah.
Yeah.
Fun stuff.
Man, so that's pretty good. So E85 is awesome. You know what's awesomer?
E85 with nitrous? Oh.
Party Brule.
You party at yours.
Good answer, Steve.
All right, last pulley swap. Unbeknownst to Brule, we're going from 18.75 overdrive to 23.4. Brule's shaking his head.
Well, Steve, you're smiling.
It was lame.
You know, at some point you have to go, yeah, that was pretty good. You know, 1,160 horsepower or something, and we haven't even got to the nitrous yet.
I'm disappointed.
I like it.
No, I mean, we have to look at the numbers before we can talk about the numbers.
I get a preview, though. That's the difference.
Yeah, I know. So I'm humming, because it looks like we only picked up like 26 horsepower. We made 1,165.1 horsepower at 6,800 RPM, and the torque was 990.5 at 5,000. And I know it would seem absurd to be disappointed by that, but it looks like we picked up 1 full pound of boost with the pulley swap and only picked up 26 horsepower.
When we go back to the gas stuff, though, that was pretty similar, too. Towards the end of the curve, when we were up in that 11 or 12 pounds of boost area, it was kind of the same thing.
Less sensitive. I just thought the E85 would improve that situation. What was our manifold temp? 158, so it came up 10 degrees than with the other pulley set, which is not bad.
Yeah, you're just up against the law of diminishing returns here as far as blower speed, temperature, and stuff like that.
Size, you know, there's just a lot going on there.
So this motor's only 8.3 to 1 compression. If it was 10.5 to 1, would it actually indicate more boost?
I don't think so. Honestly, I got to think about that. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
The question, though, is based around the fact that I think we've shown today that boost is, it's a concept. In other words, when people walk around, it's like, you know, how much boost are you running? 12. Oh, well then blah, blah, blah. Well, but it depends so much on manifold air temperature and the engine displacement and this, that, and the other.
I can't tell you some of the frustration I go through, you know, with fuel injection guys in particular, mechanical fuel injection guys. And these are tuners, and they say, well, how much boost does it make? And it's like, it doesn't matter. It's how much power does it make?
Yeah.
That's what we have to do with the fuel system. And everyone relates to this boost thing, and we both know, or all of us know, that it's a restriction.
Airflow is the biggest consideration here because if you put that supercharger, your turbo, or whatever is generating the boost up against a huge restriction, you're going to have sky-high boost, but you're not going to have any power.
Yeah.
For example, we could put a much smaller camshaft in this, like a 230 at 50 camshaft.
And make more boost.
And make more boost, and a lot less power.
Right.
So
yeah, so boost is just a concept. As we proved in our prior test, when we put the E85 in, made less boost, made more power, there's just more to it. But nevertheless, I'm let down by gaining only 1 pound of boost and only making 26 horsepower. So, as if 1,165 horsepower isn't good enough, we're gonna go ahead and hook up the nitrous. Ready?
Oh, yeah.
See the afterburner?
Oh, it turned into a jet engine.
Yeah. Here we go. Oh, it didn't even make an extra 200 horsepower, almost 1,359 horsepower, all the way up at 7,100 RPM. And the max torque that we saw on the nitrous this time was 1,116 pound-feet at 6,300
I saw
RPM.
that when I activated the nitrous, and I went, come on, absorber, hang in there, hang in there.
Yeah, for sure. I thought it was going to make 1,365, exactly 200 horsepower, and it fell, what, 6 shy of that, but still.
Well, in all fairness, the water temperature was about 10 higher, and I just couldn't get it down lower as the temperature in the day gets warmer.
Make me feel better. Let's look at it on the graph.
That always makes you feel better.
It always makes you feel better. 1,359.4, and what was it, 7,100 RPM?
Yeah, but it activated there and then had a dip. I think it's because it was a bit rich in there, and then it came back. I'd like to look at the air-fuel ratio curve.
Nice. Yeah, started 11.5, went hair lean to 12.4, like right when you hit the button, and then 11.3 up top. Rich, but fine. Yeah, and how about the manifold temperature? 150 degrees.
That's fine.
Same as we saw before. And once again, not colder with the nitrous, which maybe it's the probe.
Volume of nitrous, yeah.
Volume of nitrous, whatever.
What about boost? Did that change?
And the boost came up to 12.3 at peak.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what did we actually learn? I was just going for big power.
I was going to say what we learned is when you take a really cool blower motor and put smaller pulleys on it and nitrous, you can make 1,350 horsepower.
Yeah, that's a lot of power.
Yeah, it's good power.
Yeah, that's really, really stout. But what we learned, I'm gonna say, is those limits of manifold temperature and where you can go with the blower and the pulleys and stuff like that.
I think part of it too is what we learned is blower size. There are some limitations. You get to that point. What I frequently see, like in the street style, non-stripped 871s, man, you get to 950, 980, and they're just, you can pull them until you're blue in the face, and it's just not gonna make any more power. It'll probably make less because you're making the air hotter. They're just done. So quality of blower and size has a lot to do with power potential.
Well, this is making 200 more horsepower than your average shelf blower that you're seeing. And some of those are actually not even just turd blowers. They're just lower end blowers.
Yeah.
This thing's about the highest end 871 you can get, and it's making bench racing 200 more horsepower.
So again, go to a 10, 12, 14.
Yeah.
You know, they just get better and more power potential.
I have one last question. Do you have more nitrous jets?
Sure.
Really?
Are you kidding? I love the nitrous. I have all the jets.
Oh,
So
boy.
could we hit it with another
100?
140 horsepower
Sure.
and make 1,500?
If you want.
We could?
I'll let you.
Really?
Really? Wow, he is completely fearless when it comes to your engine.
We should have 1,500 horsepower.
Let's go for it.
I think we need 1,500.
Oh, man,
Here we
look
go.
like your buddy's egging you
Oh,
on.
man, I had no idea it was going to come to this. Yes! Yes!
Look at the happiness level, Freiburger.
This is the hold my beer moment. We have got a 350 shot tune-up on the nitrous system. So we went from 175, which actually made 200 horsepower, to 350, which could actually make 400 extra horsepower. So we're looking at making in excess of 1,500 horsepower if everything goes right.
Man, you've got more guts than I do, Freiburger. Seriously.
Going for the glory.
Double the nitrous. Relay, that was your most reckless moment I've ever witnessed out of you. It was awesome.
I loved it. I loved it.
Did you?
Yeah.
You're all smiles too.
Absolutely.
I know. I saw 1,500 go by, but let's look at the actual data.
Okay, let's see.
The
We're good.
Iceman.
Oh,
05.
just barely. It made 1505.3 at 7,200 RPM, and it was probably on its way up.
Yeah,
and then you
probably a little
chickened out. Torque-wise, it made 1233.7 at 6,300 RPM. That's absurd.
I could trim the tune up a little bit, maybe pick up a few more, but
I think we're
I'm
done.
happy we're
No,
good.
we're done. I'm comfortable now.
Well, you're so brave 10 minutes ago.
No, it lived though.
Yeah,
So
it did
now
live.
I'm giving it a reprieve. 1,500 horsepower.
Pretty good stuff.
Yeah, so it basically picked up 150. What was the jets that you put in it?
36-42.
Let's look at the air-fuel ratio. Oh, Brulio nailed it.
It's a little rich. Like
It's
I
a
said,
little
rich. I could trim it a
Yeah.
touch there, drop the fuel pressure probably, maybe go back 2 thousandths in fuel, but
Yeah, it was 11
close.
to 1 at peak
Yeah, it doesn't need to be.
horsepower. It could be leaner than that by, a point, honestly.
Yeah.
But we don't need to go hunting for another 10 or 15. 1505.
This is the most fun we've had in a while.
It is.
Yeah.
Can we look at the curve?
We can.
Is it a curve or is it a table?
Table.
It's a table. Nice tune-up. Do you want to compare it to the prior nitrous shot or no
Sure.
nitrous? Yeah,
Well,
let's look at the prior
nitrous.
nitrous shot.
Ba-boom.
There you go.
Oh, wow.
As easy as a jet change. Look at that. And now throw on there the so-called NA, the blown but with no nitrous on E85.
Which one? That's going to be a final. Oh,
Man,
weak.
You can't have that garbage. Yeah. Yeah, when your junk only makes 1165, you're nobody. You got to go to the 1500. Oh, man. I'm
was
happy.
awesome, Freiburger.
That was good.
Yeah.
Exactly what I was hoping for. Give me the COVID smack.
That is a 350 horsepower jet off of NOS's chart.
And it made?
And it made
350 horsepower. Look at that. And table flat.
Pretty good stuff here. I'm really liking that.
That is awesome. All right. This is like my favorite episode ever.
Me too.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I like it.
Cool.
Good stuff.
Look how excited you are. You're like a little kid.
All right, Steve, I'm just going to stand here and gloat as you heap me with praise.
Freiburger, you just made 1,505 horsepower. And I'm super proud of you, bro. Nice work.
Thanks, man. I bet you did not think that either me or Brule would be willing to go there.
No, as a matter of fact, when we were in the 1,300 range, I thought we were walking away.
Oh, I know, but I could see the disappointment in your eyes.
I know, and then confidently, with no holding back whatsoever, you looked Brule straight in the eye and said, I think we're gonna step up to 350 horsepower worth of nitrous, and he didn't flinch. What was going on? It was like opposite day.
It was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
The thing is, I know that there's a lot of guys looking at this and they're going, but my junkyard LS with a turbo makes 1,500 horsepower, and it might. But then you don't have this. Look at the big block with blower and nitrous.
Oh, it definitely has presence.
Nothing can top the visual appeal. Gloating aside, I'll gloat more. Here's the thing that's actually fantastic is the versatility of this to me, because on 6 pounds of boost on gasoline and no nitrous, you can have 900 horsepower on 91 octane and drive this thing anywhere, anytime.
With complete reliability.
Except for maybe a little valve train distress. It's got a lot of cam in it.
Yeah.
But then you just add a little bit of pulley and some race gas and you're making 1,000. And run it on the 85 and you're making nearly 1,200. Throw some nitrous on it on gas, you're making 1,300. Throw some nitrous on it, even more on E85, you're making 1,500. You can just completely stab this in a race car, and then as your terror diminishes, step to the next level. And then when the terror diminishes, keep on going. That's what's great about this thing.
Oh yeah. For that day where you just have to have your 1,505 horsepower.
Man, I just
You're
don't
all
want
set,
the episode
Predator.
to end, man. This is just the greatest thing ever. All right, that's a wrap for this episode of Engine Masters. And man, I'm just totally thrilled to death with my old Bonneville short block. And huge thanks to the guys at Blower Shop and NOS, because greatness.
I agree. I saw that! 1,500 horsepower!
Yeah.
Are you out of your mind?
And it's still running.
No, it lived. It did it like nothing.
1,500 horsepower.
Whoa.
How do you like my tune-up now?
That was good.
Oh.
Did you see the afterburner? This time on Engine Masters, we are living the tunnel ram life and showing you what camshaft lobe separation angle is all about. Whoa. That was the bad one anyway. Me and the Steves love testing engines, and in particular, we love testing camshafts because there's always something to learn, and this time we're going to address one of the most complicated things about camshaft profiles, and it is lobe separation angle, or lobe displacement angle, also called LSA or LDA. First, let me tell you what that's all about, and we'll do it staring at this 440 Mopar camshaft by Comp Cams right here. So the forwardmost lobe on the cam is the exhaust port on this Mopar. It's opening and closing the exhaust valve. The third one back is the intake lobe for opening and closing the intake valve. Look at them and you can see that there is an angle. So if you draw an imaginary center line between the peak lift of both of these lobes, you can see that there is an angle between the two. When you have a tighter lobe separation angle of 106 degrees, the exhaust events all happen later. The intake events all happen sooner. The opposite is true when you spread it out to a wide lobe separation angle. At that point, all of the exhaust intake and closing events happen earlier, and all of the intake happens later. So there's a lot of voodoo that has to do with this, and as a matter of fact, if you have a dual overhead cam engine where you've got one stick that's got the intake lobes and one of them that's got the exhaust, you can move that stuff all over the place independent of each other. We're gonna keep it very simple for this test. We're gonna run 3 different lobe displacement angles, 106 degrees, 112 degrees, and 118 degrees. So what we've got there is 106 is tighter. It's closed up like that. 118 is really wide. It's spread open like that. And so we got Comp Cams to make us 3 separate camshafts that are identical except for the lobe separation angle. They're all mechanical rollers. They all have a duration at 50 of 264 on the intake, 268 on the exhaust. The lift is 660 and 330. That lobe separation angle again is 106, then 112, then 118. So let me talk a little bit about what you can kind of expect from this, which you might not see on the dyno, and that is idle quality. When you take that lobe separation angle and tighten it up, it makes for a lot of valve overlap, which is the period of time that both the intake and the exhaust valve are open at the same time across the end of the exhaust stroke and into the intake stroke. That's what gives a camshaft that really choppy idle. It makes it sound gnarly, but it also reduces idle vacuum and can make drivability difficult. So that is the cost of the tight lobe separation angle. However, it tends to make much beefier mid-range torque. When you widen out that lobe separation angle, you smooth the idle. You get greater vacuum, and that's the reason you see it in a lot of EFI applications. And the other thing that you do with that wide lobe sep is it tends to favor the much higher end of the RPM curve for the camshaft at the sacrifice of mid-range torque. So our plan is to run those 3 camshafts through that 440 Chrysler. And to tell you all about that, the beauty is on duty. Mr. Steve Dulcich!
All right, put me in the Wayback Machine because I actually built this engine 20 years ago, and honestly, it hasn't been apart since then. Let me give you a little detail about the whole combination here. Most of the stuff is really stock passenger car equipment. I've got a stock 1969 block, I've got a stock Ford steel crank, and I've got 67 440 heads, which I ported. Now, the block is filled with some high-performance parts to add durability and performance. I've got Eagle H-beam rods. I've got Arius pistons, which give me 12.66:1 compression with these cylinder heads. The bottom end has a Mylodon stud kit, a Mylodon deep sump pan, and a Mylodon tray. Now, the real beauty of this engine is sitting right here, the glorious Wyand high ram tunnel ramp. I used this engine for all kinds of dyno tests for magazine articles, and one of the things I did was test a 4150 4-barrel combination, a Dominator setup with a single carb, and this, my tunnel ramp. And the tunnel ramp pretty much put everything else to shame. So we're gonna roll this thing into the dyno with the 106-degree lobe separation angle. We're gonna see what kind of power that makes, and we'll compare it to the other 2 camshafts. And more importantly for me, I get to see if it still makes the same power it did 20 years ago.
The only thing I know here is that I'm going to get smarter by the time we're done. I've done this test before, but I think not knowing as much as I know now, so I'm going to be able to look at more things and think through more camshaft event processes and get smarter.
And have more questions when you're done.
For sure. Every single time.
Always the case.
And I'll have way less anxiety when we're done.
Are you still all torqued up?
Dude, yeah.
My favorite part about this episode, he's in charge of the mechanical stuff.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, but he's all freaked out. Every time Dulcich has his own engine on the dyno, he gets all twisted.
Why do you guys like it so much when I'm actually feeling a lot of consternation? I mean, why would that give you pleasure and joy? Seriously, I mean, we're all friends. We've been working together for a long time.
It's just the total reaction, and bringing you back down is really the fun part, telling you that it'll be okay.
I'd actually like to put this in a car now, but Steve, why don't you just put me out of my misery and get this test over with?
That's a good idea.
I can do that.
All right, we're going to fire it up initially with the camshaft with 106 lobe separation angle. So we're going to see big horsepower and find out what it makes on the 106. First of all, Dulcich, that's a stout Ironhead 440.
Yeah, I know.
It runs pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, here's our power numbers. It made 664.9 at 6,300 RPM, and I'm going to allow Dulcich to call that 665.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
And 614.1 pound-feet of torque at 5,000 RPM. And I did the math. That's 1.36 pound-feet per cubic inch, which for 452 inches with an iron head is like pretty wowzer.
The iron head part's the most impressive.
Yeah. I mean, the tunnel ram's contributing to that, and so is the
12.66
to 1 compression for sure. But still, to be able to even move the air through that small block head that they installed on 440s is not bad.
Not just iron, but an actual original equipment production iron
right.
head.
It's a 67 440 cylinder head.
And Steve put his magic in.
Oh. Boom. So we're going, this is 106, and we're about ready to go 112. So we're spreading at 6.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Cam swap. Brule's going to watch. Dulcich is going to change, and I'm going to surf Instagram.
You can get that, Troy. You're strong as an ox.
Look at this. This is supposed to be a press fit, but Dulcich honed it so that we can do the swap really quickly. Nice.
All right, it did better than I thought. Because a lot of times when they heat up, they get stuck.
Yeah. A bunch of people have asked me what the point is of this unit right here, which is the Jessel, which is the brand, camshaft belt drive. People have seen this on that other big block that we were running, and on social media they asked me, you know, what's the point of that? Does it make more power? Theoretically, supposedly, the rubber belt instead of the chain transfers less crankshaft harmonic to the camshaft. Does it matter on this? I don't think so, especially at an engine at this level. Maybe if you're running some pro stocker with all kinds of valve spring pressure, it's a different story. In this case, it's super handy for us because you can change camshafts more quickly, and it's got just an adjustable slip in it so that you can degree the camshafts like that. Do you agree with this, Steve?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
The convenient thing from a testing standpoint is a lot of times that's part of the process. We'll swing the camshaft forward and back a couple of degrees to see what the engine actually likes and optimize the tune-up with it.
Yeah, it just makes it super easy on cam timing is the main reason we run them. All right, now you just pull these out and cam out. That's a big time saver. These are good cams to keep too.
Yeah, they are.
Stabbing in the 112-degree lobe set cam.
All right, that's it. The engine's all back together. We've pulled out the 106-degree lobe separation angle cam, and we went with a 112. That's a big change, but we want to see a big difference. So we're going to take a look at what that does to the power curve.
Well, looking at the peak numbers, we just made 660 horsepower at 6,400 RPM and knocked the guts out of the torque at 587 pound-feet at 5,100.
Really?
Yeah, but this isn't going to be a story about peaks. This is going to be a story about shape of the curve. So let's have a look at the graph.
Boom.
Oh!
Wow.
You would not choose to do that.
No, and that's what I was saying. It's just different modes, but the OEMs do it for idle quality and smooth and low emissions and no overlap and all of that.
You mean OEMs run wide lobe separation angles for all of that?
Racers do it for stuff out here where this engine doesn't run.
Right.
And so all this is to me is just a loser.
So I think the other reason that we run them on big blocks is that we're running such a big lobe that when you spread it wide, you've still got overlap.
Well, or less overlap with the larger lobe. Right?
Less overlap? No, what I'm saying is
when you spread them out.
Yeah, but obviously if you took the same cam and ran it narrower. But the lobe is so big that when you say it's on a 114, it's still got a ton of overlap compared with what you would do with a smaller lobe.
Yeah.
The smaller the lobe is, the more radical the change is on lobe separation angle, the effect on overlap.
Yeah, no, there's still a lot of overlap with the larger camshafts. But again, most of the time when you're looking at a camshaft that big, and whether it's a big block or a small block, the thing's revving up to 8,000 or 8,500 RPM. You're not trying to take advantage of a 112 or 14 lobe sep at 6,500 or 7,000.
Right.
You're looking for that advantage up higher.
I've been playing in that neighborhood so much recently that I forgot why when you flip through the cam catalogs, all the drag race cams are on a 106 or a 104 or 108. And that's why, because, I mean, we just killed this thing.
Well, even more so when you look at the catalogs, you'll see circle track stuff. on 106s and that sort of thing because they want the torque coming out of the corner.
Wow, that's more dramatic than I was hoping for.
No, but that's okay because when I originally built this engine 20 years ago, the lobe step I went with was 107.
Yeah.
Because I knew it was a production-based cylinder head, and it's a small cross-sectional area, so it's airflow limited at that displacement. Now, if I was doing a 383 with the same head,
yeah,
it might want to go a little bit wider and still be okay and run out the back door at a higher RPM.
Because of the RPM capability?
Yeah, the airflow to displacement, basically.
Okay.
So
I remember about 100 years ago, I remember a 360 cubic inch sprint car guy saying he was putting a 106 lobe step cam in and that should help it out of the corners. And I just didn't grasp it.
Right.
This sure helps. This is real visual.
It's interesting because when I was completely ignorant of all this stuff, instead of just mostly ignorant about all this stuff, I used to think, I thought because drag race cams for small blocks and stuff, they are on 106 and 108, and they idle really ratty. I thought they were for RPM. It's not. That big overlap actually is for torque.
Mid-range. It comes on the cam.
Mid-range.
When it comes on the cam, which is where things tune together and it just gets that boost in torque right there in the mid-range.
And Comp Cams always does their shelf, not always, most of their shelf cams are on a 110 for a typical street strip engine.
Yes.
And I think that's for a balance between idle quality, because a 106 is ratty and lumpy and messy, and still making some of that mid-range power.
I think a 110 is probably, as far as a compromise, it kind of catches everything.
Okay.
You're not giving it away as like a 112 or 14 and getting very specific, and you're not getting that horrible idle like on a 104 or 106 or something. So a 110 is really a great compromise. But when you get more specific and the application and you learn a little more about this stuff, you start to look for those little small changes that you can make to enhance the performance of your application.
What I'm hearing a lot on this is that, unlike some of the other things that we do with camshafts, that in the world of the engines we deal with is fairly universal. Like you add duration, you add RPM, kind of. You advance the cam, you get more low end. You retard it, you get more high end. Those are like general rules. But what we're doing here with the lobe separation angle seems, based on what you guys are saying, to be more engine specific.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So
and application specific.
Yeah, making it a bigger problem for the average guy to decide what to do, which is why you just default to 110. And this engine's kind of a tweener. It's not a normal street strip engine. It's weird because it has compression and a tunnel ram and a tiny cylinder head that you've improved. So maybe it wasn't the best thing to actually do this test on. Maybe we should have done it on a more typical engine.
I've seen the same test with a 350 or 383 Chevrolet and 10 1/4 to 1 compression. The results are really just very similar. I mean, these characteristics and, like you say, the engines that we typically deal with that's kind of the outcome.
So this is 106, this is 112. Is 110 going to be right between these two?
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay, I think that was the meat of the episode, and now we're going to move on to seeing how much we can actually ruin Dulcich's 440.
How much power can we lose?
With 118. Let's go make it worse. Another cam swap coming up.
Can we run the cameras backwards and then finish with the, with the other cam? What I'm doing here is putting on the push rods. And here's a little tip, because if you just put the push rods in, they'll drop down out of position. But the simple trick here is just to put a little piece of welding rod across the rocker stands, and that'll build them up to just about the perfect height. You can drop the rocker shaft assembly on, and the whole thing is ready to tighten and go. So you don't want to just like ramrod any of the 5 bolts holding the shaft down. That's going to stress the shaft because some valves are open or some rockers are going to be engaged. So you want to just kind of ease it down that way so you can avoid damaging the shaft.
Okay, I think we're done. Ready to go fire it up and find out how much power this camshaft kills. right, Dulcich, brace yourself for disappointment.
No way, man. It might be the magic cam. The 118 might be the key.
We're going the wrong way on this episode.
I don't think so.
Well, our peak numbers here are once again destroying the torque curve. 575.2 pound-feet of torque at a peak RPM of 5,300. And the horsepower is basically the same, 659.9. Call that 660 at 6,500 RPM, which tells you why you never want to believe when somebody just tells you how much horsepower that their junk makes. Never trust engine masters when they only talk about horsepower, because we're about to show you why that's not the only thing that matters. There's the curve right there with our 118-degree lobe separation angle camshaft. We're going to overlay it with the 112, and there you go. The 112 is in red, and yeah, it's...
See, that's a trend we were talking about. Up here, where the street engines are kind of done, is when the super wide lobe separation angle may actually start to have some advantage.
Well, it did actually raise the RPM at which peak power occurred by a couple hundred RPM.
It did. So you're saying if this was a 327 with a good cylinder head on it and you were going to run it to like 8,500 RPM, this might be the right thing to do?
Yeah, if you didn't care about anything it did below 6,500.
Okay, yeah.
You'd run it from 65 to 85. Yeah, it might be the right thing to do.
Yeah. Okay, now to show you just actually how devastatingly bad this really is, let's compare it to the 106-degree lobe separation angle where we started.
Oh, wow. It's like that.
So clearly, the blue lines here are the best camshaft with the 106.
Look what it does here, though. With each step of wider lobe sep, it starts to carry a little bit better up here where we're not using it.
Why did it only float the valves or have a valve spring issue with the 106 cam?
I think the springs warmed up after Dulcich leaving the engine sit there for 10 years.
That's possible.
They've rejuvenated themselves.
It's actually possible.
The real meat of the story here is like right off the hit at 3,500 up through peak torque. I mean, it's just free power down there.
Up through peak torque? How about up through peak horsepower?
Well, okay.
It's all the way.
All the way.
All the way, that tight lobe separation angle's a win. And as disappointing as this was to go backwards in the power curve, the average power the whole time, it still taught me something. Because I'm still rolling around in my head the whole concept of like when you would want to pick something that has a really wide lobe separation angle versus when you wouldn't. We haven't talked about idle quality. We haven't talked about if you have EFI and you know, are more comfortable tuning it with a better idle quality, which you get with the wider lobe separation cam.
Idle quality, vacuum signal, all the things that EFI wants. That's part of the reason. Probably part of the reason that we see it in factory camshafts now versus, or in the fuel injection era versus muscle cars, 60s, 70s era stuff.
Well, and also the newer cars have much better cylinder heads than they did back then, which is why they can get away with those camshafts. It really speaks to what makes the LS so good.
Yeah.
Is that it can be, the combination of a great head and a small cam with a lot of lobe separation.
And then what about runner length, too? How is that going to affect it? You know, that's kind of a question mark still, but I would say the correct lobe separation angle is really specific to your combination and your RPM range.
Absolutely.
I mean, we can't walk away from this and just say, oh, you want a super tight lobe separation in every case.
No, in fact, there aren't even, this is what I was saying earlier, there isn't a general trend that we can say. Like with duration, you can say you add duration, you increase your RPM at peak horsepower. You know, it pushes the RPM up pretty much universally until you saturate the cylinder head or whatever. But with this, it's really engine specific.
You guys have driven stick shift cars with type lobe sep camshafts, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And they
aren't they freaking miserable? I mean, it's just like this all the time. So there's a good reason. It's just for drivability.
Wow, that is an eye-opener, though. I mean, this test went too far on the wide. I would have rather seen us go like 102, 106, 112. The 118 is just off the plot.
But I think it's good for demonstration purposes. I mean, I think it shows us what the trends are.
All right. Let's get this baby off the dyno and sum it up, Freiberger.
Let's get this baby off the dyno and get that 106 cam back in it stat.
I know.
Absolutely.
Okay, Steve, with every test, we progressively castrated this thing more and more and more.
Oh, you know how to hurt a guy.
So I want to throw it back to the beginning to give you credit for making 660-something horsepower out of stock iron heads on a 440 with a stock stroke.
Well, thanks for the kudos, Freiberger.
It's really good.
I do appreciate it. I was pretty satisfied with that number.
It was great. Yeah. I wasn't that satisfied with our camshaft testing results. I always have to scale my comments about these tests down to what I think is the average street strip muscle car guy with an engine like this. In other words, we're not dealing with Formula One or pro stock or even a guy trying to run 8s. It's a guy who's got anything from a daily driver to a 9-second muscle car.
Okay.
In that range, I would say pretty much get a camshaft with a 110-degree lobe separation angle, maybe a 108 if you're drag racing.
Right.
If it's a dedicated drag race car and it's only going to run up to about 6,500 RPM, get the 106.
Right.
I think that there's no real call for getting anything really wide, like a 114 or something, unless you're dealing with an LS engine with a fantastic cylinder head, or unless maybe you want really great idle quality with the FI.
Yeah, or if you've got a very, very high-performance car or boat or something where you're revving it out to 7 or 8 grand.
Oh, that's when you would use a wider one, yeah, if it was really above 7 grand.
Another validation besides the horsepower, when I first put this together, and I used a comp roller cam back then, which is quite similar to what we tested today, I picked 107.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it made almost the same power as our 106. So there you go.
So there you go. I didn't learn a lot from the data that we actually saw here because we just kept on killing power. But I think it was definitely representative of the fact that you can go way wrong with lobe separation angle. And if you've got a question, basically pick the camshaft out of the catalog, look at the description. They've done a pretty good job of keeping you out of trouble. Comp cams for the win, and the Dulcich 440 tunnel ram motor for the win. How cool is this guy? I'm gonna see how happy you are when this thing makes like big power.
I built this 20 years ago, Freiberger. Do you realize that?
It didn't break sitting in your garage.
Yeah, that's true. I haven't run it in 10.
Might have rusted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've already tuned it up a little bit, so we know the 440 runs. So you should have seen him off camera like, 3 hours ago. It's just like, one cigarette off the end of another, one beer off the end of another.
I guess it would be horrible for me to admit that I was enjoying it just this much.
I know. This time on Engine Masters, Motorhome 440, iron versus aluminum heads, and turbo. It's time for more fun with 440 power. So between Roadkill and Engine Masters, we have really turned the Dodge Motorhome 440 big block into a cult superstar. Think back to Roadkill when we built that General Mayhem 68 Charger and tore a 440 out of a motorhome to install in the car. Later on Engine Masters, Dulcich took the 440 that was in the dirt everyday Winnebago and cleaned it up and hopped it up. And between episodes 53 and 58, we ended up making 392 horsepower with a stock long block. And that was pretty good. Now we're going next level by backing up to begin with, because I assure you, this particular turd will not make 392 horsepower. This one's more worn out than our other ones that we've had. It's from a 1978 Dodge Crew Cab truck. This thing has like 7.2 to 7.4 to 1 compression ratio. Everything about it is stock with the exception of a Comp Cams XE268H flat tappet camshaft and the valve springs to match. It'll have headers on it. It has an Edelbrock base performer intake manifold and a Holley 750. Now, what's gonna make this episode great is you're gonna learn a whole lot. First of all, we're gonna turbocharge it, because people keep telling us without low compression, it's built for boost. Well, we're gonna find out just how built for boost it is. Second of all, people keep asking me, how much better would those engines do if you put aftermarket cylinder heads on it? And we're gonna do that as well. So here's the program. First, we're gonna run this thing naturally aspirated as it sits right now. Second, we're gonna add a turbocharger. Third, we're gonna bolt on some Trick Flow Specialties aluminum cylinder heads. And then fourth, we're gonna add a turbo with the aftermarket heads. So look at all the stuff that you're gonna learn. How much does a turd bone stock 440 make with a cam intake and headers? Then you're gonna find out what you can do with a cheap turbo setup. Then you're gonna see what kind of power the aftermarket heads make naturally aspirated. And then you're gonna find out how much power it makes with a turbo and aftermarket heads. It's the episode that just keeps on giving. I should begin with an apology for bringing that into your shop.
You deserve to apologize. That engine is responsible for single-handedly changing Westech's policy on junkyard engines.
What's that?
They don't come in the door anymore without hitting the hot seat first.
Oh, okay. Grease pit?
That thing was hideous. I mean, there was literally chunks falling off of it.
So. Yeah. Steve's OCD, so he cannot handle a drop of oil on the floor, much less that turd. This thing, unfortunately, isn't going to make the power that yours did before, so you'll be happy to know you're going to win that.
Well, okay.
Yeah, it's a bit of a smoker, but we can fix that with the turbocharger. First, though, we're going to run this thing naturally aspirated and have a look at the baseline number. Ready?
I'm curious.
I'm gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, it's better than I thought.
Here's our baseline power, kind of what's expected. 447.7 pound-feet of torque at 3,500 RPM, and an even 350 horsepower at 4,900. Now, the last time we did a Motorhome 440 was episode 58, and it made 392 horsepower. But some things were different. You had that thumper cam in it that had a narrower lobe separation and more exhaust side, and we had degreed it to perfection, and it had a Performer RPM intake manifold instead of the base Performer, and it didn't smoke like this one.
I think I had a Street Dominator, single plane, for the 392 horsepower run. Yeah.
Okay, maybe that was it, yeah. But nonetheless, a slightly different combination, which is why this one's down.
It also had the magic touch of the dulcich. You forgot that part.
Okay, the next step is something I didn't really anticipate initially. We're gonna go install a Holley Street Dominator intake manifold, which is a single plane, because that's the unit I wanna use for the turbos later. So we're gonna do an A/B test on the Performer dual plane versus the Street Dominator single plane. Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. Let me go get it out of my Jeep. Okay, here we come. This intake right here is the first intake manifold I ever purchased. I got it at the street races in about 1986 for 50 bucks out of the trunk of some guy's car. So if it's hot and somebody has a stolen intake manifold over the past years, I apologize. There we go, Holley Street Dominator. Now this is a single plane intake, which normally means it would throw away a lot of bottom end torque, but this has unusually long runners for a single plane, and Dulcich says it's gonna make more power everywhere, but that's what we're here to find out. So Steve's gonna fire it up, and we're gonna watch. So our new peak power numbers are 444.5 at 3,600 RPM and 364.8 horsepower at 5,000, but that's not the whole story. Here you've got the red line being the Edelbrock Performer intake, the black line is the Holley Street Dominator, and I'm calling this a trade-off I would make.
Yeah, absolutely. This, like Steve had mentioned earlier, the converter will eat that up. You're right past that RPM almost immediately, and this is good stuff here.
That carries pretty good. I mean, I think that's entering the realm of real muscle car madness.
Think so?
Well, 365
horsepower.
That was an advertised number for a lot of legit muscle cars.
10 away from a 396. Yeah. Not bad. It's only a 440.
4.5 over the hydraulic cam's 396.
There you go. Right. So what we're looking at basically is that it threw away some bottom end torque with the Street Dominator intake, but we don't really care because it's a small amount, it's below torque converter stall speed, and it made enough extra horsepower that we're happy with it. Happy enough that we're gonna move on to Boost.
Ooh, that's gonna be even more extra horsepower, hopefully.
Let's turbo this turd.
Turbo time.
Oh boy, I can't wait.
So here is our implement of boost. This whole contraption was put together by Richard Holdner, who tests here for his own YouTube channel, so you may have seen this before. However, we're running it with a different turbo, different intake manifold, and different cylinder head swap than you saw in his program. So he cobbled this just for dyno use. It doesn't fit any car, but it's pretty clever because it starts with stock Dodge 440 truck exhaust manifolds. They're not flipped upside down or anything like that. The hot side comes out of both manifolds, wise into the turbocharger, which is a Borg-Warner S275. You can pick the eBay unit of your choice. It'll probably be similar, but we like the American-made unit there. On the cold side, this discharge right here feeds into a CSU carburetor hat, and we're also using a CSU carburetor, which is designed specifically for blow-through applications. We've used this a bunch out here at Westech, and it's pretty turnkey. How about all these hoses running everywhere? This is an oil feed line into the turbo. Had to punch a hole in the pan for the oil return line. Then of course you've got vacuum going down there to the wastegates, or I should say actually a manifold reference going to the wastegates, which are on the spring. We're gonna run about 7 PSI. We're not trying to kill this thing. That same manifold reference goes up there to the blow-off valve, and behind the hat we have got our boost reference for the fuel system, which is also our boost pressure gauge. We've only got boost here in the hat, not in the manifold. So there you go. That and the O2 sensor to read air-fuel ratio to try and keep this thing alive. I don't want to blow it up, but I think we should make, I don't know, a couple hundred horsepower, 150? Let's see. Doesn't make it smoke any less, that's for sure. Oh. So we made 9 pounds of boost, and actually 1 pound of boost is a significant correction there. And it probably is gonna disappoint a lot of people, I think.
You think so?
Am I downplaying too much?
Yeah.
Okay, here's the news. It made 644.5 pound-feet of torque, which is wow, and it made 514 horsepower, which is probably people going, what? I thought you had a turbo. But the junk is stock. It's, you know, it's blowing smoke. It's got a tiny camshaft. It's got no cylinder head. Let's look at the curve and then compare it to naturally aspirated so you can see that this is actually a win.
Wow.
Wow. Wow on the curve. Okay. To be clear, in case you cannot figure it out on your own, these red lines are naturally aspirated. These black lines are under boost. So look at everything that went on here. First of all, how much torque did it pick up? From 433 to 632. So that's 200 pound-feet of torque. 200. How much horsepower did it pick up?
148.
148. Yeah. Almost 150 horsepower. So I was sort of preparing the audience for the low 500 horsepower number. What's your take on that?
Well, it just won't run out the back door. I mean, you're RPM limited, so to get a lot of power, it takes a lot of boost and a lot of cylinder pressure, and we didn't want to blow it up. I mean, we're at 8 to 9 pounds of boost, and what if we were at 14 or 24? We'd have an engine blown up.
Yeah, you get to pick your power, and we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little about ignition timing and what we did here versus the compression ratio?
As you compress or add cylinder pressure, the mixture ignites faster. And so you don't need as much ignition timing. But looking at something like this, the cylinder pressure really isn't any greater here than maybe with 12-to-1 compression.
Which you're judging on BMEP.
Yeah, brake mean effective pressure, which it's a theoretical number, but it's some representation of what the cylinder pressure is average throughout the power cycle.
And more importantly, it's a made-up number, but in your head, you know, well, a 13-to-1 compression engine is going to do this.
It's a number I see all the time.
Right.
So
So
I look at
what is
12
the
to 1.
number here?
It was in the mid-180s.
Okay, so basically that's as if this was an, you know what? I bet you his 12.5 to 1 440 was right there.
It is.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So basically what we just did is ran this thing at 12.5 to 1 compression by adding air into the cylinders, which makes for more pressure. And because we're starting at 7.2 to 1.
There'll probably be a lot of guys that poo-poo and say you can't do that, but it's got 36 degrees of timing.
36 degrees. Yeah. But it wanted 42 naturally aspirated.
So it's back some. I mean, but the 42 was not big gains from 36 when we ran it earlier. It picked up 5 or 8 or something.
Well, and that's because it's such a steaming turd.
Pile.
Right? Anyway, I think if we had this turbo in a car, we'd be thrilled to death with 644 pound-feet of torque.
Yeah.
Let's go put some cylinder heads on it and see what the gains are, both naturally aspirated and under boost.
I think that might help quite a bit.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
The last couple times we've done motorhome 440s, a lot of people who are viewers have asked, you know, what would it do if it had aluminum heads on it, aftermarket heads? So that's what we're about to find out. I've chose this TrickFlow Specialties head, TFS. First of all, it is fully CNC ported. We picked the model with the 240cc inlet ports instead of the Maxwedge style 270s. And on the chambers, first of all, the intake valve size is 2.190 inches. The stock 440 valve is 2.08 inches. So it's a huge difference. So these are way too trick for what we're doing. I really hope they make a big difference. If they don't, I'm gonna blame that engine because it is a pooch. Is that distributor gonna clear this thing? There we go. That was kind of a lot, but we got our super trick cylinder heads on our super junk engine with our really nice roller rockers and everything, and I really hope it makes power. Guess that's it. All right, we got 3/4 of a point more compression. We lost weight, not that that matters on the dyno, and we got a way better flowing head. So we're gonna pull it now and hopefully it makes a ton more naturally aspirated power. Hit it, Steve. Our new power numbers for the 440 with the TFS aluminum heads are going to be 432.9 horsepower and 473.7 pound-feet of torque. Let's have a look at how it compares with those iron heads. Whoa!
Wow. That's huge.
That is a massive difference.
Pretty good head.
Yeah. I think the thing a lot of people might not realize, because you read so much about, you know, oh, a bigger head is going to kill low-end torque. No. The stock head is so bad that this thing just makes power everywhere.
Well, yeah, 440 is like having a small block Chevy head on a big block, so.
Yeah, by which he means the ports on the big block Chrysler are just way too small. They're like small block ports on a big block, as you can see by this. And even with a tiny, tiny camshaft, for it to make this much meat right here, that's absurd.
I'm going to show something else too. From where it made peak power before, the larger port, how much it carried. It changed where peak power occurs by about 400 or 500 RPM.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can use that all the way down the track too. I mean, RPM is going to be ET.
The great thing about this is that's a massive difference in power with no cost to drivability at all.
No, none whatsoever.
Right.
Yeah, there's no downside to that swap. Yeah, that is a win for TFS right there.
Still want to put pistons and rings in it though.
Nah, turbo.
Turbo it.
Fix it.
Yeah, we'll remove the pistons for you. So, ready to go hang that on there?
I'll do it.
All right, let's go. Turbo. We're all dialed in with our aluminum heads with the turbocharger. We're gonna go see what this does. Fingers crossed for 600 horsepower and the short blocks stand together. Okay, go ahead, Steve. If it blows up, I hope he doesn't hurt my cylinder heads.
Oh, I know. I hope it doesn't blow up.
Me too. Oh, man, that thing's a smoker.
Wow. It just came a tick under your 600 number you were hoping for.
I think it's good enough. Maybe we should let it live.
Oh, no. Booster up, baby.
Look at that thing. So I don't know if you were looking at gauges or what, but we saw a lot of smoke out of both the exhaust and the breather.
I couldn't watch the engine because I was doing this.
So first, can we look at the boost curves? See how similar we were to with the stock heads? So the blue line here is our boost with the iron heads, and red is with the aluminum heads. It's kind of the same. Our scale here is only 8.7 up to 9.2. So even though it looks like a radical change, it kind of isn't. All right, let's get to the meat of it though. The power. What did it make? And it made 652 pound-feet of torque and 592 horsepower. Missed my 600 guess by that much. This is the thing that we see all of the time. Whatever gain you make naturally aspirated is the gain that you see under boost. And there you go. With the same boost, the same engine, two different cylinder heads, the NA gain was about 75 horsepower and the boosted gain was about 75 horsepower.
Like they say, build the best NA engine you can because that's going to be the best boosted engine you can build.
Yep, I think that demonstrates that once again. What do you think, Dolchek?
I think, are you guys going to address the elephant in the room here?
Oh, no.
I mean, seriously, we're at 592 horsepower. If you had 8 more...
Even Brule wants to fix it.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Steve want to turn up the boost before, ever?
He doesn't care about this motor because he thinks it's a turkey.
When Troy was in the cell helping us earlier, I told him to move away from the side of the engine. Just make sure nothing hit him.
All right, I want to see your best impersonation of a millennial. Go in there and turn the knob.
I can do it.
All right, Dulcich, this is it. I'm calling it after this.
Really?
How come I'm the one with like cold feet and Brule is the one to be like, hey, crank it up?
I know, it's like a role reversal deal. But the thing is, I don't know if this can make more than 600 horsepower or even make 600.
Yeah. Piston rings are done.
Yeah.
They're over.
She's had it, man.
Not happening. Yeah, but literally the piston rings will not handle more boost. We keep cranking up the boost and the power keeps dropping. It's just blow by.
That thing's had it, guys.
We have fun though. Did you see the torque number on that last poll?
I did.
Let's have a look at it. 694.3 pound-feet of torque. And this is all at 3,600 RPM or something like that. Up top, it only made 589. Literally, we keep cranking boost into it. That number keeps dropping up there. This thing is happy at basically 9 pounds, making 590 horsepower and 650 pound-feet. That's the comfort zone of our turd of a 440.
Like Brule was saying, a set of rings, and maybe that gets a whole lot better.
By the time I've got the bottom end apart for a set of rings,
yeah,
I'm putting it together the right way.
That makes sense.
That's kind of the point. I mean, we learned a lot here. So now with a fresh engine, then you kind of know where you're at already.
Yeah.
So
we did see that turbos definitely make power.
Well, and we also saw, once again, that NA power gains with the cylinder heads add right up to turbo power gains with the cylinder heads. At the same boost level, it makes the same increase. Cool.
Yeah.
Ready to wrap it up?
I am.
We can talk about you behind your back. That's what's going to happen right now. All right.
What's new?
What's new? I only have 2 things for you.
I'm ready for them.
One of them, I'm not going to even believe your answer because I know that you're just going to go straight to the faith in Ma Mopar. What is the longevity of this short block?
Oh, take that much boost all day long. Are you kidding? Look, this thing's pretty worn out, and we hammered it with 9 or 10 pounds of boost, and it's no worse.
You really believe that the main caps and the rods are going to take that over and over and over and over?
The internet says the turbos are a lot easier on the bottom end at any given horsepower level, and I believe it.
But at main caps, I mean, why do they make girdles and everything for the Mopars if they can actually just hang?
Just for extra peace of mind and sell parts. All right?
Okay, well, I'll give you this. We know that 440s survive at 600 horsepower and beyond all day long. I don't know about the 700 pound-feet of torque down at lower RPM. That's my concern.
I got to give you that one.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% comfortable there either.
So I guess question 1, undecided, but we could find out. So question 2, should we reveal to the audience what we hope to do with this monstrosity?
I would not want to leave them hanging.
Our hope is that we will be able to take this very motorhome 440 and throw it in a car on Roadkill Garage. Will it happen? Well, that's question number 3, and we'll never really know, but that's our scheme. We will see you next time on
Engine Masters. Did you know that I saw these on highway patrol cars in the Central Valley back in the day when they had the 440 Monacos?
Yeah, compared to the 429 LTDs, they needed all the help they could get.
I disagree. I think that the 440 Dodge Monaco of 1977 and 78 were the finest police vehicles ever.
Not compared to the Cobra Jet 460s, right? Or
they had a 429
or police interceptor.
Yeah, and they were awesome.
Welcome to the Dyno! We've got fun and games, and we're gonna take you behind the scenes in how we handle our hunt for horsepower. This is going to be a very special episode of Engine Masters. Kind of like the Brady Bunch Goes to Hawaii, but a different kind of vacation. Because I'm going to do my best to put you in our shoes to see what it's like to go behind the scenes for a day at the dyno here at West-Tech Performance Group in Mira Loma, California. What we're going to do is show you how you would show up with your engine prepared, why you would want to come to the dyno with your engine to begin with, how you hang it on the dyno. We're going to show you how the dyno works, look at how we break in an engine, how we tune it up, and of course, how to judge whether the engine is any good or not. All of that this time on Engine Masters. Now, let me tell you about this lovely engine that is going to be the victim of this episode. This is the COVID 350. You've probably seen it on my social media. You may have even seen it on an episode of Roadkill where we did sort of a working from home deal with me and Finnegan, and I assembled this out of parts that were literally left over in my garage, which I know looks really greedy, but this represents 30 years of hoarding parts. Let me tell you what it's all about. First of all, it's a 355 cubic inch small block Chevy, very standard stuff. It's just got a stock cast crank, H-beam rods, forged pistons. It is 11 1/4 to 1 compression, which makes it pretty good. And it allowed me to do things like install a big solid roller cam. It's a Comp Cam's off-the-shelf unit. The duration at 50 is 242, 248. I've got rocker arms on it with a 1.65 to 1 ratio for 600 lift, which makes it good because you can walk around going, I got 600 lift. Now, the cylinder heads you should recognize because they've been on that 383 small block that you've seen on a cajillion episodes of Engine Masters. They're the Blueprint Engines 210cc CNC ported heads. Up top, Holley 850 double pumper that just really stabbed my hand on that vent. That really hurt. And I've got an Edelbrock Super Victor intake manifold on it, MSD ignition. We've already got the dyno headers on this thing, and it is mounted to the dyno cart. And we've got the special flywheel installed, which I will show you once we get inside the room and take you behind the scenes on this dyno test. Let me get this thing out of here. One of the things you got to pay attention to is not knocking the engine off the cart, because right now it's not actually attached at the back. So first of all, why would you even want to dyno test your engine? Well, first of all, because it's really fun. I guess one of the big deals for me is if you have a brand new engine like this, you can break in your cam if you've got a flat tappet cam. That's huge. But you can also make sure nothing's gonna break before you put it in the car. Leak checking is a really big thing. And of course, you can get a baseline tune-up for both your ignition timing and your carburetor or EFI. And of course, you get to walk away with the horsepower number and brag to all your friends that you have Dyno proven power. When you bring your engine in, you want it to be as complete as possible. Once you get your engine here at the shop, it'll get mounted onto a rolling cart like this, which is super handy. You want to have motor mount brackets on it to hang it on there. And they'll install a flywheel that matches the balance to your engine. So if the dyno shop you're dealing with doesn't have that, if you've got, I don't know, a Ford FE or something that they're not commonly dyno testing, you want to make sure you've got that. They'll bolt on this drive plate that has a hub in it, like a clutch with springs, that's going to mount here to this spud that attaches to the dyno. And of course, there's a regular old bell housing, like a manual transmission bell housing, that's also used to couple it to the dyno. In our case here, you don't have to run a starter on the engine. There are twin starters under here that attach to the dyno itself, so we don't have to deal with matching that all up to a flex plate and wiring that every single time. But some dynos actually, you have to have a starter with them. I don't have a lot of experience with other types of dynos other than this, but there are some that do not require a bell housing or a flywheel, and they have more of sort of a drive shaft situation and different methods of mounting the engine to the cart. So you can ask those questions before you go to the dyno shop. So they've pre-leveled the thing, because one of the deals is it's got to go in this way, but it's also got to be leveled up and down, and it can't be like this. We used to fight with this a whole lot more. And Brulé is the only guy who sticks his arm in the bell housing and has the trust that nobody's gonna wiggle the engine and pinch his finger off.
As David was explaining kind of the rear of the drive system, the flywheel and all that, we've now slid it onto the input shaft, which is just not dissimilar to like an old Muncie 1 3/8 10 spline. What we have here is a water brake or an absorber, which basically is a, for lack of a better term, it's a variable speed torque converter. It's controlled with a servo on the bottom, which either holds or releases water to maintain engine RPM and load. What we're doing is measuring torque with what's called a strain gauge or a load cell, and basically what it is kind of an electronic rubber band which changes in millivolts. So it's actually calibrated, and then we actually measure torque. And between torque and RPM, we calculate horsepower. So there are observed channels and measured channels. Basically, this is the brain of the thing back here, this control box. We're monitoring fuel pressure and oil pressure, all of those things. But the meat of any engine dyno is really measuring torque, engine speed, which calculates to horsepower. All the other stuff is kind of things to look at the health of the engine or the potential of the engine.
So he's hooking up the oil pressure, I'm hooking up the fuel lines. You can see that we have both an A and a B fuel line here, and you'll often see Steve looking at the fuel flow on each bowl to sort of judge what's happening with the jetting in each end. So all of the water stuff that we deal with all the time, I never know what valves you're opening and closing and what the huge tank does outside and the heat exchanger and all that stuff.
Well, as far as the stuff I'm adjusting on the capacity valve and that sort of thing, it's really to kind of contour the absorber to the power output of the engine, because that electronic servo only has a certain amount of sweep. And so I'm basically increasing...
The servo being the dump, basically?
Yeah, the dump, the electronic dump that's controlled by the computer.
The releasing the water out of the torque converter, so to speak.
So what I'm doing with that capacity valve back there is kind of contouring the ability of the absorber for more or less torque, which is more or less water, because we want to keep that servo in a sweeping range for the RPM range we're running it. And so I basically reduce the water or increase the water for engine torque.
This is actually the Westex Super Custom Stainless Steel handmade water tank. It's got a radiator cap that goes here up on the top. And then this is a water-to-water heat exchanger. So there's tubes that run inside the thing and water that goes around the outside of it. And so you've got cool water from the giant tank, and then you've got water out of the engine. And it works like a water-to-water or an air-to-water intercooler, basically, except for it's water-to-water.
This is one of the fuel turbines. Basically what it is, it's a little paddle wheel inside of this housing, and it has an optical pickup. So as that paddle wheel spins, it's actually counting. And so as the fuel passes through and goes up to the B turbine, We're able to count the fuel in pounds per hour and actually ultimately calculate that into gallons if we want to. What we're able to do is we have an A turbine and a B turbine, which allows us to read the primary and secondary bowl of a single 4-barrel carburetor, or primaries and secondaries in, let's say, a tunnel ram carburetor. What that allows us to do is make sure that we're not rich on the front, lean on the back, or left and right with a tunnel ram, those sorts of things. It's just another piece of the equation for data that we can look at to help us tune.
Steve showed you about the fuel flow and how that's measured. Also, fuel pressure is internal to the dyno. Some of the instrumentation that we do that involves the engine, well, this is dyno. We deal with water temperature here. That's what this is reading. We've got oil pressure hooked up just like you normally would with your odometer gauge on your dash. It just connects to the dyno. We also have a wideband oxygen sensor here. Sometimes we'll run 8 of them in every single header tube so we can look at the air-fuel ratio cylinder to cylinder. On a standard deal like this, we'll just put 1 of them in a collector. It's obviously about 18 inches back from the opening so it doesn't get oxygen contaminated. And speaking of contamination, the other thing is if we have a brand new engine that's never run before, especially if it's a customer that Steve doesn't trust, like, you know, Dulcich or somebody like that, we'll not put the oxygen sensor in for initial fire up just so that it doesn't get wet with water, oil, overly rich mixture, any kind of disaster. This is run before and it's already broken in. So we will start with this all hooked up. I can never find the plugs once they're thrown over. That's why we need Troy. Watch this. Hey, Troy. See? Pork chop's good that way.
One of the other pieces of equipment that we frequently use, and we have actually in past episodes when we're trying to kind of figure out why an engine makes more or less horsepower and we're looking at airflow. Basically what this is, it's a little generator and it measures airflow down through the carburetor. And then again, it's calibrated to the electronics on the dyno, but it's got this aluminum honeycomb, a little fan there, and it actually, as air is moving through the carburetor, it spins the little fan. And again, it's calculated. We don't hardly ever, well, we did once, use this when we were running nitrous, and we don't any longer because this is really very fragile honeycomb to kind of direct the air and make sure that it's straight and the fan operates properly. But any sort of backfire or anything can damage this thing really easily. So this is really more like development sort of stuff, not necessarily having to run it on every engine every day.
Okay, Steve, before we fire this thing up, what are the most common questions that you get from new customers or people who show up here for the first time?
I'll get emails that say, how much does it cost to dyno my engine? A little more information, please.
Okay.
You know, a lot of times things will come over the internet and it's very vague, and there's a lot more to it than that. I mean, I really want to talk to someone on the phone. I want to ask them about water pump and configuration and pulleys and whether it's EFI or carbureted.
Blown turbo, some crazy contraption with 2 blowers and 3 turbos.
E85 or gasoline, all the way down to the point of, if you're bringing your headers, have they recently been coated?
Right.
Or are they seasoned? Because does it have a flat tappet? Does it have a roller? I mean, all of those things play one part to the other, so.
So on the header coating, if you break in the engine with a fresh set of coated headers, it bakes it off, right?
Now it's a bubbled coated header.
It completely ruins it. That's something I wouldn't have ever even considered for this,
Yeah, you have to season them, and you can't season them with a flat tappet very well, so. We'll use our headers first, break the camshaft in, then put their headers on after the camshaft's broke in to season their header, and then run it with their headers.
Do you recall ever getting this kind of care?
Oh, all the time. I'm kind of curious, have you ever had someone come in so underprepared that you had to send them home, or?
It's worse than he ever has been.
I mean, the worst one I remember is I had a short block. Outside, when you came in, I was sitting on the curb porting the heads and had to get the thing tested that day.
Okay, so you want to walk us through what you would be doing for an initial break-in thing? You want to go start it and show what Troy's going to work on and et cetera?
Sure, absolutely.
Walk us through as if we're ignorant because, as you know,
well,
we're not.
Troy's out in the cell, which he normally is on startup, and we're going to check for any sort of fuel leaks initially. We're going to crank it for oil pressure before we start it. We're just going to check some real basic stuff, And then upon startup, he's going to do a walk around and inspection. He's got a heat gun in his hand, so he can go ahead and check and make sure we've got temperature in all 8 cylinders. He'll take a listen to the valve train, and then he'll go ahead and check timing for me. And we kind of have, we've been doing this long enough together, we've kind of got a hand signal program worked out, so we really don't have to talk to each other much.
Brule, being old that he is, he's hard at hearing, so we have to use hand signals. So what's going to happen is when Steve is in there and getting ready to fire it up, I will be ready with the temp gun and check the temperature of each cylinder and make sure they're all firing right.
This engine happens to have a solid roller camshaft, so my typical procedure would be to just start it up, make sure that we have base timing set. I'm going to warm it up to kind of test temperature, and then we're going to shut it off, and I'm going to go out and relash the valves after initial startup, just so I'm comfortable with that. Once we come back in, I'll run it through a break-in cycle, and then we'll start along our test procedure. So I can show you what some of that stuff looks like. All we're doing right now is just letting it get up to some sort of reasonable operating temperature. It doesn't have to be 160 or 80. If it were a circle track engine, we would run it much warmer. This happens to be kind of a street and drag race engine, so we're going to actually run it in the 130-ish range. And so this is at about the point in time where I would just shut it off and go out and relash the valves just to make sure that we've got some temperature in it. They're all adjusted accurately. Okay, so we've got the valves lashed, and now I've come back into the console. One of the things that I think is interesting, it's a story I like to tell, is, you know, people say, well, why do I want to break it in, or how does that work by cycling the engine up and down and varying the RPM range? In the old days, somebody would tell you that you wanted to break it in by just going on a drive where it was kind of up and down hills and varying the throttle position. But I had an opportunity to look at a big block Chevrolet that someone had forgot to put an oil ring spacer in. It was a Stroker 496. And during the break-in cycle, I could see the engine smoke out of the passenger side header. And as the RPM increased, the smoke would go away. It would get to a little higher level, and it would smoke out the driver's side. So I was actually able to kind of visually see externally how the oil kind of fanned through the engine. So the whole idea was to keep the camshaft lubricated, to keep oil on the cylinder walls while they're seating, and to keep everything lubricated. So it was just kind of fun to be able to see what's actually happening inside the engine during the break-in process. So we'll go ahead and get it started up and run it through a break-in. Just gently bump it up to 3,100, and it's going to cycle it from 31 down to 27, back up to 31. We've run this engine before with a different carburetor. In the interim, we've changed carburetors because David's actually going to put this in a car, and this is the carburetor he'd like to run. Even just trying to bring it up to an RPM and load to break it in, the air-fuel ratio is so lean, we can't continue. And that's part of why you take things in small steps. We're going to have to go out and address the carburetor issue a bit and upjet the primary circuit on the carburetor just to get the thing to cruise smoothly and to be able to run through the break-in process. This has a 72 jet in it. Typically, I see 80 to 82 jets in these. I'm putting a 79 in it just to give it some fuel, and we'll I'm sure, probably have to readjust some from there, but we just got to be able to make it run and not be so lean that it stumbles and runs hot.
Another thing that can make it lean like that is a really radical vacuum leak, which, by the way, on the dyno doesn't seem to matter at wide open throttle at all, but it'll affect like the drivability and the idle and stuff like that. So as soon as we ran out here, I started to look and see if the carburetor was missing any plugs. The one in the back was cracked, so is this one in the front. So that wasn't the problem, the jetting was the problem, but nonetheless, that's the type of thing that you can find out before you get the engine in the car.
Well, we got one full pull under our belt now. We ran it from 35 to 6,500. I can tell you that the engine's healthy. It's got a couple of little tune-up things that I think can be improved on, but before I go any further, since this thing belongs to David, and I always like Steve's opinion, I think I'm going to go out there and talk it over with those guys.
The best part of this is I think Dulcich is really going to like it.
I do like it already from what I've seen.
Oh, you've been watching the data?
Oh, you bet I have.
I knew you'd appreciate it.
Yeah.
Let's have a look and see where we need to go. Really, the power is still on a little bit of a climb. We stopped at 6,500 RPM, and right there we're making 502.9 horsepower. So obviously that crests that 500 goal and only gets better from here. As far as torque, and we are looking at corrected numbers here, which Steve will explain in a minute, 442.7 at 4,800 RPM. So our spread, and we often look at this, the spread between the RPM at peak torque and the RPM at peak horsepower is 4,800 all the way up to 6,500. So that's an 1,800 RPM spread, which is good.
Yeah, it's really good. Kinda what we typically see in LS stuff that's good.
Yeah. No, we really like to see that because it basically means the package is working.
Yeah.
It's not very what we would call peaky. Like if you saw the spread from 5,800 to 6,500, that's an engine that's only operating in that range, whereas this thing's fairly happy throughout the entire curve.
Yeah, it's a beautiful curve.
Yeah.
This is kind of almost an ideal situation when I look at an initial break-in and some testing. It's a little bit rich, not horrible.
So you say it's a little bit rich. We're looking at air-fuel ratio, which is the mixture of air and fuel as measured by the oxygen sensor in that tailpipe that I showed you, or in that header collector. And it starts out at 11.5 to 1 and ends up at about 12 to 1. We would call that rich because we're going to target this thing later at 12.5 to 1 to 12.7 to 1.
What I generally do is on a normally aspirated engine is my target is horsepower. Wherever it makes the best power is the right air-fuel ratio. And I will sometimes see that at 12.2, and I'll sometimes see it at 12.8.
Okay, fair point.
So we're just going to let the engine tell us what it wants.
Let me ask you this. When we start doing our timing sweeps, do you ever see timing affect the air-fuel ratio?
Slightly. Not nearly as much as people think. I mean, they think as soon as you add timing, it's going to get a whole bunch leaner. We might see it move a tenth or two, but I'm not going to see big swings in air-fuel ratio.
Okay.
The other thing I like here is the oil pressure. It's got a really nice curve all the way up. And we were looking at that as we kept moving up in RPM, making sure all of those things were right.
So as far as the fuel mixture, we talked about air-fuel ratio. The other thing Steve looks at for drivability and just sort of the overall happiness of the carburetor is fuel flow in pounds per hour into the front and rear bowls individually. What do you see in there?
Well, what can happen is the air-fuel ratio can look like it's in a good range, but the front of the engine could be extra lean and the back of the engine extra rich, but it averages out to appear to be okay. So with this, I'm verifying that it has equal fuel flow in the front and rear. In a perfect situation, you would have good drivability, good wide open throttle, and at wide open those would be well balanced. That's a perfect situation. We get close. This thing looks really encouraging here. We're only a couple of pounds off. And we know it's rich, and we know it's rich at cruise, so we're going to be able to lean the whole carburetor out a little bit.
So tell me what we're going to do next.
2 and 2.
2 and 2.
Yeah, back at Chuck Willery. I remember that. I'm thinking we take 3 and 3 out. You know, just something to get us closer. On this size carburetor, generally 4 jets out of the front and the rear will knock about a ratio out of it. So I don't want to get too greedy right away. Well, 2 is fine, 2 or 4. Get it into a range where I think the timing will actually make some effect, and then make that 1 jet change, then we'll do a timing change, then go back and finish it off with jet again. And I think you got a package.
Okay, watch this. Have you noticed Dulcich hasn't had much camera time in this episode yet?
I know.
Yeah, so he should probably go change those jets.
Oh, wow, you're just putting me to work.
I know. I always find a way.
He's so benevolent. Well, as it turns out, the air-fuel ratio numbers appear to look like they're in a better spot, but it actually lost about 4 or 5 horsepower. So, like we had talked about earlier, is we kind of just let the engine tell us what it wants, and sometimes they want to be richer. So we're going to go back to the jetting, so it's very similar to what it was, richen it up just a little bit, and then go ahead and chase the timing.
The carb's fully dialed in now, and the next step is going to be taking a look at the timing. We had a base setting very conservatively at 32 degrees, so we're going to bump that up to 34 and then test it again and see if it picks up any power. If it picks up a lot, we may even go further to 36 until it stops giving us an improvement. So I'll just give the distributor a little twist, and then I'll give it a check with the timing light.
Now we're ready to look at some data. To review, we ended up first dialing in our fuel curve and then going to the ignition timing. So let's look at what we learned there.
So this is actually after changing the primary jet because it wouldn't even run to break it in.
Right, fair point.
So we added some fuel there. So we were a little closer than it may have been, but we couldn't run it the way it was. And so that's what we had there.
Okay, so let's compare that with what we ended up with our fuel curve. And I will say our jet changes on this thing were, after that initial step where it was way too lean, we were talking tiny. We never change one jet number at a time in a Holly, like for example, from 72 to 73, but we did that today, which was kind of dumb, but it worked.
Okay.
There you go. Big difference just from a couple of jet numbers right there. So that's one of the reasons why you want to come to the dyno. You've now got a baseline. I have found that when you take the engine off the dyno and put it in a car, you don't necessarily get the same results. It's not going to track the same air-fuel ratio numbers because of underhood heat, what you've got for an air cleaner,
exhaust,
scoop, exhaust. Yeah, when you put an exhaust system on it, it tends to like richen it up, all those things. But it gives you a point to start from.
Yeah, and it depends on the application too. I mean, when we do some of the drag boat stuff, it comes off the dyno, goes in, and never gets touched, and they're pretty much spot on. But again, they have the same fresh air, open headers. Right. It's a much more similar situation. Mm-hmm. So anytime you change other components, mufflers, exhaust system under the hood temp, air filters, air cleaners, that type of thing, it's going to change some of the results.
So now let's just look at our best curve after we adjusted the fuel and compare that with the timing that we were messing around with. And we did end up changing the timing from an observed 30 degrees to 32 to 35 and even 36. And it was really insensitive above 32 degrees. At 30 degrees, man, it threw away power. I've never seen 2 degrees make that kind of a change. As a matter of fact, I think because Troy initially set it up and then you were looking at it, I think it was a different parallax on the light and comparing the mark in a different place.
I suspect that we probably were looking at it a little differently because I got it right and Troy did his best. Right?
Well, that's one reason why often we have a rule here. If it's your engine, you set the timing so that you can repeat it in the car. We didn't do that this time. Yeah. Although, you know, my crew chief here probably will be dealing with that engine if it ever gets in the car, so we're good. But anyway, we found the optimal timing for it, which is an indicated 34.
Right.
Okay, and how did that look? Not a whole lot different. As a matter of fact, it's down just a little bit right here, just from variance from test to test. But
Freiberger, I have to confess, I honestly think that's the difference between 34 and 35 degrees.
Yeah,
so 1 degree difference. And it's virtually an overlay. That's within dyno variation, if you ask me.
Which is really another point, I think. If you go to a dyno shop and they run the thing a few times and they can't overlay a curve like this, there's a problem going on. That's one of the things that makes Steve great is he's like paying attention to not just the coolant temperature, but in his head, he's also thinking about the combustion chamber temperature, because you can have the same coolant temperature whether you just rushed a bunch of water into the engine and the chambers are still hot, or whether the thing's actually settled. And his dyno brain has got that sort of dialed in.
Well, it just kind of turns into muscle memory after this long, but you've seen me do it. Let the engine idle for a while so the combustion chamber temperature drops, even though the water temperature still reads the same. The combustion chamber temperature is lower, and it'll make more power.
Yeah.
So you can play little games like that, and we try really hard not to, because we want it. We want every test to be a comparison. We don't want to just have random numbers. I love the engine dyno because it's so much easier to do that with the equipment we have than it is on a chassis dyno when you have even more variations.
And finally, the punchline we all want to know when we go to the dyno, which is what is our peak power numbers? And the COVID 350 barely breaks into that 500 that everyone wants to see. It's 501.9 horsepower at 6,500 RPM. And by the way, in previous tests, we ran this thing all the way out to 7, and it carries very nicely. And once again, the spread between peak torque and peak horsepower is huge. At 4,700 RPM, we made 447.7 pound-feet of torque. So now, you may heap the praise. Now, I understand these days 500 horsepower is no big deal, but what we do to look at an engine and decide if it's good or bad is more than just the peak power number, because a 500 horsepower 540 big block Chevy is worthless. A 500 horsepower 355 Chevy on pump gas is pretty good. So let's talk about how we decide that.
Well, I mean, for me, the number to look at is always specific torque, and that's because the torque that you produce per cubic inch just falls in a narrow range, and you can judge if you're on the upper end of that range, man, you're doing pretty good. If you're on the lower end, then not so much. So where are you at, Freiberger?
So what he's talking about is pound-feet of torque per cubic inch, specific output. It is 1.26 on this engine.
Okay, that's a very respectable number for a pump gas engine, for sure. Wouldn't you think, Brule?
No, absolutely. Kind of the number I use in my head a lot, and because I have seen a lot of engines kind of end up there that were good. And on an average, I would say some of the best pump gas stuff that's a true street engine, you know, 10 1/4, 10 1/2 to 1 with a really good cylinder head and a hydraulic roller camshaft, they end up, I mean, kind of a target for me is 1.25.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see a lot of iron-headed stuff down at 1.15, some pretty decent stuff, 1.2. So at 1.26, that's a really good number for pump gas.
The specific horsepower output, horsepower per cubic inch, is 1.4, 1.41. Also pretty good for something like this.
Absolutely.
All right, well, that was a lot of really technical gobbledygook, but I hope you realize on every episode how much fun we have going through it and sort of nitpicking it and discovering why power is great and what engines are good and what engines are bad. And on that note, I'm not satisfied yet with you guys having told me that this is a great engine. I'd like a little bit more.
Okay.
You can just sort of feed it in. No, it's not that awesome, but it actually came out pretty good. It's a fairly good street 355.
There's no question it turned out really well.
I can remember being in high school or my earlier years, you didn't go to the dyno, you know. You couldn't afford it at the time. There weren't that many dynos around, as a matter of fact. But if you're an engine geek and you want to improve your game, the dyno is where you do it, because you have all this data. You could get all that feedback. Oh, is that working? Is that making it better or worse? You get dyno brain Brule and your buddies there. And, you know, like the dyno is probably one of my favorite things, so.
Well, it is me too. You just made it sound so fun. All we really need is beer. Can we work that out next time?
There's some in the fridge right
now. Oh,
now.
that'd be fantastic.
I'm
All
on
right,
my way.
we're out for that. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Engine Masters. Up top, Holley 850 double pumper that just really stabbed my hand hard on that vent. That really hurt. Look, that's sharp. Yeah.
It needs mechanical 8-stack.
Who's speaking here? If I were to call him and go, hey, Brule, on Engine Masters, I want to run stack EFI on this thing.
On a
he
pill.
would immediately be like rubbing his head.
Well, here's my thing.
What's
okay?
our schedule? That's
What's
what
our
I'd say.
schedule?
Hello, xin chào tất cả các bạn nhé, là mình đây. Lại ra những video hay cho các bạn xem, các bạn ơi. Các bạn ơi, các bạn thứ hai thì hãy like, comment cho kênh của mình thật hay nhé. Ok các bạn đã theo dõi kênh của mình, thank you các bạn rất nhiều nhé. Ok, thank you các bé. Anh luyện và gọi tất cả anh em vậy.
Nào tôi gọi anh luyện gọi mày em gọi anh được. Gọi đi.
Em khổ nhất đất nước Việt Nam.
Khổ đấy là
Không gọi nó không gọi cháy máy không nghe máy.
em gọi đi.
Gọi cháy máy không được.
Rồi biệt xuống.
Hả?
Rồi xuống.
Gọi cháy máy không được. chị để cho nó đi số đấy. Khổ nhà em gọi nghiện.
Bây giờ làm gì vậy?
Em đang quay.
Bao giờ rồi?
Chưa. Sao đây?
Mình làm cái thu mà.
Em đang quay.
Chết à? Dạ. Mình làm cái thu hết. Bật máy lên để anh ấy cho kịp rồi. Và các phát để cái ảnh nó to, nó biết bao nhiêu. Mà phím không biết được, mà phím của anh ấy nhỉ, mới nhỉ. Phím này thích nhỉ. Thế nhỉ. Hôm qua gọi cho sếp mà cháy máy sếp không nghe à?
Ôi, ra cái gì vậy?
Gọi sếp không nghe đâu.
Sếp không nghe rồi chịu luôn nhỉ.
Cô đã đổ chứ?
Ra đây rồi. Vừa gọi lên chiến. Chiến gọi lên sếp mấy chục cuộc, mấy trăm cuộc.
Tổng cộng là 50 cuộc.
50 cuộc không
Kinh
nghe.
thật đi.
Em gửi cho cái content của em ấy. Chính sự rồi thì chính chờ.
Cái không lại.
Hả?
Không lại được.
Không. Sao thế à?
Giết á.
Em lạnh này. Em lạnh áp pháp. hoặc là tất được.
Tối qua rét.
Lạnh quá. Nắng rồi. Alo. Chú ship quán, chú đang ở dưới hả?
Báo chính mong luôn.
Dạ vâng, cháu xuống cho lấy cho. Không có người xuống lấy luôn mà, cháu đang ở trên nhà. Dạ vâng. Mình anh Nam là ra cửa lấy nhà anh đâu?
Báo chính mong lấy cái chuyển luôn.
Thế bảo ông Chiến mong. Chiến ơi, lấy gà, có cái chú hỏi chú Thủy, chú ship gà đấy, lấy gà chuyển tiền cho chú ấy. Ừ. Anh đang quay dở chú.
Nắng rồi.
Nắng à?
Mình gọi cho luyện, mình cho mẹ sửa số 1 thành số 5, mũ cái 5. Gọi như là không nhiều mấy. Mình không gọi mai chốc này xếp chửi quá hầu.
Tự dưng đặt đợi nhắn tin làm gì? Đi mẹ đứng hỏi vay tiền đi chết rồi. Em nhỉ? Cưới thì chả nhẽ mời cưới. À nhỉ? Vậy thì nguyên nhân là đèn alo thì không trả lời thì lại trả lời đi nay một tiếng thì chết dân.
Chị hả? Nó gọi em chị, nó gọi à? Nó gọi em để tụi máy bay. Ô em gọi em đấy. Em lượn.
Nó cùng mấy giờ? 7 giờ, 7 rưỡi.
May chưa thấy gì. Đưa đi rồi. Chín chưa? Lấy chưa anh hả? Ơi. Ông không nhận tài khoản hả? Sao ông lại không nhận tài khoản?
Vì tôi mới trả được.
Ừ, thế trả tiền mặt thôi. Em Minh xuống nó trả tiền mặt thôi.
Chùm nước thì mấy đồng tiền để lại cho nước vào. Đúng không?
Anh có nhiều tiền. Tiền xe.
Lấy chuyển khoản. Tiền kia anh đưa cho ông ấy. Ở chỗ em. Cái đấy em chuyển cho ông.
Tiền biếu hả? Tiền biếu. Thông tin là trả tiền lễ của mình. Tí trả tiền lễ của mình.
Trả cái đấy dễ.
Tí nữa anh trả tiền lễ của anh mình xong lâu nay họ đổ tiền lẻ cho mình. Thì hút quá mình đưa kia. Đúng không?
Nó đợi này bịp vãi. Nó lấy gà nó vì nó không đưa tiền. Em ra em đưa tiền cho em có gà. Cứ đứng chờ mới đưa gà cho ông. Nó mang gà vào bếp mẹ nó thở.
Chứ chỗ hàng gì với.
Bây giờ tiền cho ông đã đưa gà cho mình đi.
Tổng mong em không chặn được.
Vừa sẽ biết bao nhiêu ca.
Giờ đến trưa kìa.
Chị Mong ơi!
Cô này thì có tiền nhỉ?
Tổng luôn.
Chưa tổng đâu.
Qua tổng luôn.
4 ca.
25. 25 hả? Nhân vẫn 10 30 35 là thế chưa được.
Cua chiều quyết anh sao mà được như thế. Bình đó mà không được được.
Hả?
Có cắm điện đâu? Cắm điện đâu? Cắm đi. Trong bên trong cắm lên. Automat có bật không?
Có phải bật automat cơ?
Như được. Áp ở ngoài đấy. Mọi lần cái bật công tắc nó lên.
Thế giờ sao?
Nó không thấy sáng. Mình bật
À. Alo. Alo. Có việc gì đi anh? Anh làm ở đấy hả? Ok để em gửi số cho nha. Ok. Sao anh? Xin số mẹ anh. Mày không phải xí mượn tiền. Làm cùng với mẹ anh. Gọi lấy số bảo mẹ anh xin hộ tổ trưởng cho nghỉ. Nghỉ hôm. Có áo hoa thiệp hồng, còn nơi đây thì chỉ biết nói yêu rồi để đó. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại các bạn nhé. Mình sẽ kết thúc video lại đây. Cảm ơn các bạn đã theo dõi kênh của mình. Thank you các bạn nha.